we need to figure out what we're trying to keep at bay. What is the itch we're trying to scratch really that maybe we're not actually reaching? Welcome to the Love Your Brain podcast, the podcast designed for everyday people who are ready to hop off the negative thought hamster wheel and enjoy a less hostile environment in their own brains. Our brains are where we live our entire lives, and I'm on a mission to help people see that they have everything they need to make it a happier place to be. So join us for this episode of the Love Your Brain podcast. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Love Your Brain podcast, or welcome if you're new. If you haven't already, please leave a review. I would so appreciate it. Those reviews are really helpful for people just perusing through all the podcast options. They can read what you think and decide if it's worth their time. Okay, so if you have been following along, you know that next week I'm going to be making a big announcement, starting a new Super Vulnerable series. But this week is going to be our last week in our listener requests that we've been doing, covering just some questions or struggles that people are dealing with that we're going to be addressing here on the podcast. And this week is the last one. But this did have me thinking, would you ever be interested in me doing a live coaching session with someone on the podcast? I haven't asked anyone yet because I'm not quite sure if that's something that would be interesting to you. And I know it would be really vulnerable, obviously, for the person that I'm coaching. But if I ever found someone that was interested in letting me do that live on the podcast, where I help them basically work through some solutions for their issues, what would you think? Would that be interesting to you? Boring? What do you think? Most platforms do allow for comments, like Spotify, I think even Apple. Obviously, YouTube does have comments. So go ahead and leave a comment and let me know what you think of that idea, and maybe we'll explore it. For this week, though, I'm actually going to be honest with you. This is round 2 of recording this. The first time I recorded it had some very silly snafus, and so we're going to give it a go again. Hopefully, it's as good the second time as it was the first. But for this listener's request or this listener's question, it is a little bit different than my normal content around the brain, but definitely related to how our brains work. And I'm sure that there are plenty of you out there that will identify with this. So for the specific listener question, they asked how they can combat late night snacking, how to basically break the habit of late night snacking. And man, do I feel this person's pain. Now, for some reason, I've never personally been into specifically late night snacking. Maybe it's just because I like sleeping too much. I don't know. But I do love eating, and I do my fair share of it in the waking hours and probably to excess. So let's just be real. There's probably a lot of us out there that struggle with maybe this specific issue or something similar. This whole idea of eating more than what we need, more than just for nourishment, right? This is what we might call unnecessary eating or eating unnecessarily. And before we go much further, I do think we need to really make a clear divide here in terms of issues, because a lot of what I talk about here is, the brain, how the brain operates, but equally as important is obviously how our whole body operates when it comes to eating. And I think the most important thing to do when you're in the situation is to look at the whole picture first. And so we start with the basics. Are you actually eating late at night because maybe you're not eating enough during the day? That's a very, very good place to start, because for some people, they're just not, and they're trying to go to sleep hungry. And that's just not a good setup for success when it comes to getting good quality sleep. So I would say if you're in the situation, definitely check with your doctor or nutritionist to make sure that you are meeting all of your nutrition needs during the day when you need to, so that you can get a good night's sleep without waking up and needing to snack or staying up too late snacking. You need to make sure that you're getting the proper nourishment so that you can get a good night's rest. So that needs to be your foundation. So with that foundation set, let's move on to more of what's happening in the brain. Whenever someone is struggling with unnecessary eating, eating beyond nourishment, I always start with the question, what is the itch you are trying to scratch? Maybe that sounds like a funny question to you, but what I mean by that is eating for comfort is often an easy way to get that like dopamine hit we might be craving because there's an itch. gnawing at us from some underlying issue. So, if we really want to stop doing the behavior, we need to figure out what we're trying to keep at bay. What is the itch we're trying to scratch really that maybe we're not actually reaching? So, what is the itch you are trying to scratch with your late night snacking? Now, sometimes late at night is when our brains take us down very crazy thought pattern paths. I don't know about you, but sometimes like looking back on what I was struggling with thinking about the night before, I'm like, what the heck was I thinking about that for? But you get stuck on these paths of thought that are sometimes uncomfortable. You could be ruminating on something negative, it could be any number of things. But here's the deal. Usually, whatever's kind of popping up in those late night hours, it is something in our subconscious that we do need to address. And so, is that something that maybe you can create space for during the day? If there's some kind of just negative space you're getting into at night, what is the thing that's really triggering you that maybe you can spend some time during the day to address so it doesn't keep creeping up on you in your subconscious when you're trying to wind down for the day when you should be relaxing? So that's one thing to explore. Or there's another option that I see frequently when it comes to eating unnecessarily, and that is an itch or a need for connection. Connection and eating are very, very closely linked. Now, a lot of us really downplay the whole idea of connection with other humans, especially I say post pandemic. A lot of us, work from home or whatnot. And, being with people just isn't the vibe anymore, right? Like we're all about being introverted and I don't need anybody. I just like my peace, yada, yada. I can understand that to a certain extent, but that doesn't mean we don't need human connection. And not only do we need human connection, we need a variety of human connections. And what I mean by that is, you need different types of relationships of different depths. You're going to have a different connection with, say, your parents than you do your neighbor versus someone you work with. Those are all different types of relationships that give us different types of connection. And to give you an example here, have you ever heard someone say that eating or overeating was really their friend during a really difficult time? You probably have, because that's a very common experience. When people are struggling, they turn to food or other things as well. But food is a really common one, and that's because it's very closely linked to connection. So when you're not able to get that connection from other humans, food is a really easy place to go. Now, I don't want to say this is necessarily even just loneliness. I think it can be even more specific than that. Sometimes it is just lacking more human connections. That's very possible. But usually, when it's late at night and things are creeping in, sometimes it's related to specific human connections that are either injured at the moment. Maybe you're not engaging with certain individuals in the way that you really want right now. Or maybe it's because you can't. Maybe those people aren't with you any longer and you're not able to. So, a couple things that you can do if you feel like that might be a situation that you're stuck in. Now, pause for a second and just know that I'm not saying if you're like really missing that toxic ex that you should just pick up the phone and call them instead of snacking. That's not the instructions here at all. But there are definitely things that you can do to give your brain a way to process some of the thoughts and emotions that you're having related to that so that you don't find yourself running to the pantry. So let's take an example of maybe there is like a injured connection, I would call it. So maybe it's a relationship that's strained right now, or maybe you just had to create some space between you and someone else because there's been a lot of conflict. Maybe that's something you need to create space for during the day. Maybe it's something where you need to sit down and really just write out your emotions or cry out your emotions. Don't avoid. A lot of us think that if we continue to avoid, it just won't hurt. but it is still hurting and it's actually causing us harm in different ways. So make time for that, whether that's sitting down with a picture album or messages from someone and really allowing yourself to feel the feelings that your body's trying to avoid. That's really, really important. It doesn't mean you have to reach out to those people, but it does mean you need to create space to feel emotions that you may be avoiding. Another tool that can be helpful might be a little bit out of the box, but I'm just going to share it with you because it's something that I've done recently. So maybe you're in a situation where you are really missing a connection with someone. Now, this could be someone that maybe, again, you have an injured connection with, and so you're not able to communicate with them in the way that you would like right now. Or maybe it's, say, a connection with someone who's no longer with us because they've passed away. One thing I love to do is if I really miss having a connection with that person, I will put my AirPods in and I will go for a walk and I will have a conversation out loud with that person that I'm missing. Now, for me, this is a great way to process through some of the things that I'm like, oh, I wish I could just talk to you about this, right? You're able to have that conversation out loud, go through that same exercise. And in my own brain and heart, I feel like I can almost sense what they would say to me back. And it really allows for me to feel like I'm connecting with that person, even though they're no longer here. Now, for me, I don't audibly hear anyone responding. If you do, props to you. That's a gift I don't have. But this is a great exercise for your brain to really get some of those things off your chest. Maybe feel that tinge of connection with someone that you've really missed. Say the things that you wanted to say or wish you could say right now at the season of life that you're in and they're not with you. And here's the deal. If you're walking around with your AirPods in, people are going to think that you're on the phone. So no one's going to know that you're talking to a dead person. I'm not going to judge you, and pretty sure no one else is going to know what you're doing. So, safe space here. Again, these are just some exercises where during our waking time, we can create space for the emotions that we might be avoiding that's causing us to really turn to food late at night when our subconscious is really loud and speaking to us. And maybe this idea isn't working for you. Maybe you're like, I don't know what the itch is that I'm trying to scratch. I can't really figure it out. I don't know what the problem is. Another question you could ask yourself is, what experiences could I be having in this moment that would make me forget about snacking? We've all been in that situation before, right? Where we're doing something that's so fulfilling that we almost forget to eat. And sometimes we need to sit down and do inventory to make sure we are actually doing enough fulfilling things for ourselves. We shouldn't be running minute by minute thinking about what we're going to eat next. That usually happens when minute to minute we're not doing things that are fulfilling us. So sit down and do an inventory. Is there a job, for example, that you could have or a hobby that you might enjoy that would take your focus off snacking at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday? I'm not saying address these things at night when you're about to head for the pantry, but I am saying in those moments, at least pause to think about it because it could maybe mean that you need to tweak some things in your waking hours to make sure that you are addressing the actual itch, that you're not trying to scratch something that isn't getting to the core. Sit and feel those things. Figure out what's going on. Do I feel fulfilled during my waking hours? Because here's the deal. You know what it's like if you are going to wake up early to go to do a fun workout with a friend. You're probably not going to stay up eating late at night if you're super excited to start your next day. You're going to like try and get yourself set up for success the next morning by going to bed. Or if you are planning to go to a job that you absolutely love the next day, you're probably not going to stay up snacking because your brain is going to be looking forward to that thing you're going to be doing the next day. So take some time, do some inventory. Am I really filling my emotional cup enough that I don't feel the need to self soothe and give myself those dopamine hits by snacking late at night? And here's the deal, doing this inventory with yourself is always worthwhile. Even if you don't get to the core of the issue right away, doing this inventory is such a great way to even just build that relationship with yourself. And here's the secret, our bodies typically don't feel great when we're in a place of eating unnecessarily. Over time, every time we do those activities that aren't making our body feel great, we're causing little micro injuries to our relationship with ourselves. Each time we do something to cause a tiny harm to our physical body, our relationship with ourselves gets a little wounded. But each time we take a minute to check in with ourselves, do these types of inventories in the moment, it just starts to repair that relationship with ourselves little bit by little bit. And that's not even taking action on any of those things that you're doing inventory on. It's just taking a moment to think about what's happening on a deeper level for me. Just that thought in and of itself is going to help repair your relationship with yourself. How cool is that? So the next time you find yourself in the situation where you feel the craving hit and you want to just run for the pantry, stop and do some inventory. What is the itch I'm trying to scratch? What is it that I really want right now? Even more so than snacking. What is it that I really want? Are there some emotions that I need to create space to feel? Or are there some changes that I need to make in my life so that I can just feel more fulfilled in general? These are all incredibly helpful questions that you can ask yourself, and you can't ever lose. By asking those questions, all you're doing is continuing to build a positive relationship with yourself. Think about a relationship that you would have with anyone else. How meaningful is it when you sit with that person and you say, "How are you feeling? Do you feel like things are going well? Tell me about it. Talk to me about it. Are there emotions that you want to share?" Those are all really meaningful questions that you could ask another person. You should definitely be asking those questions of yourself, the most important person in your life. Hopefully, today's tidbit was helpful for you, and hopefully, for that listener struggling with late night snacking, hopefully, you've got some tools to at least combat it in a little bit of a different way. And don't forget, next week we are going to be starting something new. So don't forget to check back so you can join us on that ride. Have a great week, guys. I hope you found something helpful here today on the Love Your Brain podcast. Maybe a laugh or a feeling of validation, or maybe just a few moments to have company while you do your laundry. Whatever you take from it, I hope you enjoyed your time and leave feeling empowered to be more you every day. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on the next episode, and leave a review. I'd love to hear what you think. Have a great one.